All right, Khan, Shalom, Shalom. By Yafia Sha'ala. It's Akai. Kabasha Ina with WFI Detroit coming at you with yet another live video. First and foremost, I want to give a call, Halam Yahweh, by Hashem Mashiach, Omalak Yahweh Shah. Right, that's all praises to the Heavenly Father in the name of His only begotten Son, who the world would ignorantly call Jesus the Christ, the anointed Savior and King of Yasha Allah, you princes of the power, you blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans today. Right, Shalom, Shalom. Right, in today's breakdown, we're going into the proper understanding of Deuteronomy chapter 23 and verse 7. Right, so we go dive right into it and get the proper understanding of this verse. All right, I'm gonna just share my screen. We go kind of deal with it. All right, so we're gonna go to the blue letter. All right, it's like we're gonna go into the blue letter. All right, so let's get the book of Deuteronomy chapter 23. Right, I'm actually just read the verse really quick. Right, 23 and verse 7. It says, "Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite." All right, now Christians, right? They love to pull this verse, man. Right, because when you look up abhor in English, right, it's a synonym for like hate and things of that nature. And the Hebrew Israelites, they're known for hating the Edomites, right? Who is the so-called white man, the biblical nationality of the white man. They're Edomites, right? The red man. All right, and that's all they pay attention to, right? That's all they pay attention to is that part of the verse. All right, it says, "Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, for he is thy brother," right? Because Esau is Jacob's brother, right? And this law was given unto the 12 tribes of Israel. All right, the law was given unto the Israelites. It says, "Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian, because thou was a stranger in his land." So they'll read that and basically say, you're wrong for hating the so-called white man, right? But they have no understanding of the context. What is this law even dealing with? What is this even going into, man? Right, because when you check it out, real quick, Romans chapter 9, verse 13, right, this is what the Lord said. He says, "As it is written," right, "Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated," right? So the Most High, He said Himself that He hates the Edomites, right? The Most High said in Romans 9 and 13 that He hates Esau, right? So how can we be wrong for hating the so-called white man, right? Because when you think of hate, you think of lynching. You think of getting burnt alive, skinned, right? Having dogs sicked on you, man. Right? You think all these different wicked, heinous acts that the so-called white man did, man. Right? Whereas hate is actually just a strong dislike, man. Right? Doesn't mean we go rape your children, take your children from you, man, and feed them to alligators. Right? That's what the white man version of hate is, man. Right? But the Lord said that plainly in the Bible, right? Let's get Ezekiel chapter 35. Right. So I just want to kind of get the beginning parts of this, right? This is the book of Ezekiel chapter 35 and 14. It says, "Thus saith the Lord God, when the whole earth rejoiceth, I will make thee desolate." And this whole prophecy is going into Esau, Edom, Mount Seir, man. Right? It says, "As thou didst rejoice at the inheritance of the house of Israel, because it was desolate, so will I do unto thee." So the Lord said He's going to rejoice at the desolation of Edom, at the destruction of the Edomites, right? It says, "Thou shalt be desolate, O Mount Seir, and all Idumea, even all of it, and they shall know that I am the Lord," right? So all Idumea, right, and Mount Seir is going to be desolate. And Mount Seir is Edom, right? Mount Seir, if you didn't know, is Edom, all right? It says in Deuteronomy 2 and 5, "Meddle not with them, for I will not give you of their land, no, not so much as a foot breadth, because I have given Mount Seir unto Esau for a possession." So when the Lord says, "Oh, Mount Seir, all Idumea," He's talking about the nation of Edom. They're going to be desolate. They're going to be destroyed, man. And the Lord is going to do that by the hand of Israel, right? I believe that's Ezekiel 25, not mistaken, right? The book of Ezekiel chapter 25 and verse 14. Now, this is what the Lord said. This is Ezekiel, a prophet, right? It says, "And I will lay my vengeance upon Edom by the hand of my people Israel," right? So you will have to hate or strongly dislike somebody to lay vengeance upon them, huh? right? And it says, and they shall do in Edom according to my anger and according to my fury, and they shall know my vengeance, saith the Lord God. So the Lord is going to make Edom desolate by the hand of Israel, man. He's going to use Israel to be that battle axe to subdue Esau and all the other nations, man. Right? That's the fate of the Edomites, right? I'm just bringing this out because, we got to deal with, this is like that disclaimer, man. Then we go get to the proper understanding. Because unless, all this is negated, and either all this is negated and the Bible's contradicting itself, or they don't understand that breakdown, right? So this is Amos chapter 9 and verse 11. In that day will I rise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen and close up the breaches thereof, and I will raise up his ruin and build it as the days of old. It's talking about the last days, that they may possess the remnant of Edom and of all the heathen which are called by my name, saith the Lord that doeth this. Right? So the Israelites are going to possess the remnant of Edom, right? And it's like, right? It's like, bear with me. Right? They're going to possess the remnant of Edom, and it's going to be a remnant, a small amount, because a great portion of the Edomites are going to be destroyed already, man. Right? So that remnant is going to be a possession along with other heathen to the Israelites. Right? You read that in Isaiah 14 and 1 on down. Right? And along with a million other precepts, right? Psalms 2 and 5. Right? All these different precepts about the Edomites and all the nations being in subjection to the Israelites. Right? So when you read Deuteronomy 23 and 7, what is that even talking about, man? You can't just kind of negate all these scriptures and prophecies that's going to happen. Right? Because let me get this in Isaiah. Right? The Lord said it's going to happen, man. So it's going to happen. Right? Let's get Isaiah 48 and 3. Right? It says, right? I have declared the former things from the beginning, and they went forth out of my mouth, and I shewed them, I did them suddenly, and they came to pass. Right? So anything the Lord says go come to pass, man. Right? It's going to have to happen. Right? Because the Most High is not a liar, man. Right? He's not going to say, look, the remnant of Edom going to be destroyed, XYZ, if it's not true, if it's not prophetic. All right? Slocky, bear with me. Right, Salaki. Yep, Shalom, Shalom. Everybody on the comment board through the spirit. Right? So yeah, we finna dive into it, man. Right. So again, all these prophecies about Esau being destroyed, right? You got the classic Obadiah, right? Literally in the last days. Right. And Chris, they don't want to deal with Obadiah, man. Right. Obadiah chapter 1. Right. Verse number 17. But upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions. Right. So this is the last days. It says, and the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. Right. But he said Jacob, right, going to the southern kingdom, and Joseph, the northern kingdom, are going to be that fire, that flame that burns Esau to stubble. Like he said, he's going to do it by the hand of Israel. He says, and they shall kindle in them and devour them. Right? Who's the they? Israel. Who's the them? Esau. Right? So that sounds like hate, man. You can't love somebody while you're burning them for stubble. You can't love somebody while you making them a possession. All right? And there shall not be any remaining in the house of Esau, for the Lord hath spoken. Right? And hey, the Lord said it, man. Didn't the Lord say he speak the beginning? Right? And whatever he said, it comes to pass. All right? So let's get one more. Let's get Psalm, right? Chapter 135. Right? I believe that's what I want. Slocky. What's that? Psalm 136. It's like I forget the verse, right? David said, I hate them with perfect hatred, right? Right, so we got to kind of get into this thing, man. Right, Psalms 139. It's like right, the book of Psalm chapter 139, right? Verse 20. It says, For they speak For they speak against thee wickedly, and thy enemies take thy name in vain. Right? Who is the Lord enemies, man? Right? The Lord enemies are the other nations. Right? When you read Psalms 83 on down, right? Esau, right? Ishmael, Moab, and all these other nations, man. Right? You can read it for yourself. That's Psalms 83. It says, do not I hate them, O Lord, that hate thee. Right? Hey, so David said, I hate them that hate you. Right? They speak wickedly against the Lord. So why wouldn't you hate the people that hate your God? Because even in the ancient Near East, during those times, right, when you would conquer a nation, you would say, I conquered the God. Right? On the Moabite stone, they said they kind of took down Yahweh, man. Right? Kind of wrote Yahweh in the Hebrew on a stone. Right? So it said, I hate them with perfect hatred. I count them my enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. Right? So David said, I hate them with perfect hatred. Them that rise up against the Lord. All right, so that's plain. All right, Salaki, hold on. What the hell? Salaki. All right, so we finna dive into it. All right. Let's get Deuteronomy. All right, 23. Let's go. Let's deal with it. All right, so to get the context, got to start at the top of the chapter. All right. Like I said, persons executed or Saki. Persons excluded from the assembly. All right. Check this out. Real quick. I want to pour this out real quick. See if this got a title or something on it. It just says persons to be excluded. All right, kind of wanted to. I have a slot, so I'm gonna deal with it. All right, so it says Deuteronomy 23:1. It says, "He that is wounded in the stones or have his privy member cut off shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord." Right. So I want to deal with the congregation of the Lord. Because that's what it's talking about. People excluded from the assembly. What is the congregation of the Lord? What's the assembly of the Most High? Right? Where do the people assemble at? Right? When you are dealing with the Most High. Right? Where did the people assemble? Right? I'm gonna pull up another blue letter. We'll pull up another blue letter and get the book of Luke. Right? It's the book of Luke, chapter 2. Right? Slaki. I want the first chapter. Right? Luke chapter 1. Right? In verse number 8, it says, "And it came to pass that while he executed the priest's office before God in the order of his course, according to the custom of the priest's office, his lot was to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord. And the whole multitude of the people were praying without at the time of incense." Right? So when you look into assembly, right, or Saki, that word congregation, it's going into a multitude or assembly, right? Right? It's an assembly, right? Like you see multitude, right? A company, a congregation, right? It's an assembly for evil counsel, war, or invasion, religious purposes, right? So it's an assembly, man, right? And one of the first meanings going into is for a religious purpose. So the Israelites will assemble at the time of incense during the hour of prayer outside the temple. Right. So the congregation of the Lord, that's going into the temple, man. Right. It's going into the temple of the Most High. All right. Acts. Right. It's the book of Acts, chapter 3, verse 1. Now, Peter and John went up together into the temple at the hour of prayer, being the ninth hour, right? This is the same time. It says, and a certain man, lame from his mother's birth, was carried, whom they laid daily at the gate of the temple, which is called Beautiful, to ask alms of them that entered into the temple. All right. So they was entering into the temple during the hour of prayer, right? Because the assembly is right. That's when they would go and throw up these different prayers while the priest lit the incense, man. All right. Because again, the Israelites, they would assemble there during the feast days, man. Right? Get that in Deuteronomy 16. Right? Deuteronomy chapter 16 and verse 16. Right? It says, 3 times a year shall all males appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose. Right? And the Lord, he chose, right, Mount Meribah or Moriah, right? I believe that's what it's called, right? But Jerusalem, huh? Right, where the temple was at, right? And 3 times a year they would go and appear before the Lord, huh? All right, it says, in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear empty before the Lord. So they would go during these different feast days based on agriculture and give these different sacrifices, man, during these different feast days. All right, during the Pentecost and tabernacles, and during the Passover week, man. All right, so that's what it's going into when it says the congregation of the Most High. They would go to the that's how they would appear before the Lord, by going to the temple, right? Put that in Exodus 25, Exodus chapter 25, and verse number 21. Right, this is going into the Ark of the Covenant. It says, and thou shalt put the mercy seat upon the ark, and in the ark thou shalt put the testimony that I will give thee, and there will I meet with thee, right? And I will commune with thee above the mercy seat, from between the 2 cherubims which are upon the ark of the testimony of all things, which I will give thee in commandment unto the children of Israel, man. Right, so the Most High says he's going to commune with us. He's dwelling between the cherubs, right? Let's get that. Right, in Psalms 80 and 1, give ear, O shepherd of Israel, right? That's the Most High, that thou lettest Joseph like a flock, thou that dwellest between the cherubims, shine forth. So he said the Most High is dwelling between the cherubims. So the congregation of the Lord will be this, would be the tabernacle, man. Right, the temple, man. That's what it's talking about, man. Right, and certain types of men couldn't come into the assembly. They couldn't come into the congregation of the Lord because, contrary to popular belief and understanding, the heathens actually could deal with the sacrifices. They couldn't do the sacrifice. They could actually give offerings to the Most High. All right, and that's what it's going into when you read Deuteronomy 23. Certain types of men who was wounded in the stones, they couldn't deal with the coming into the assembly. Ammonites, Moabites, bastards is going into a whole list of people that can't deal with the temple and the assembly, man, because that's where the Israelites would congregate. That's where they would go, to Jerusalem, and deal with these different sacrifices, man, at the temple, right? Literally, man. So that's what it's talking about. All right. When you read Leviticus 23, and they came for that holy assembly and convocation, and they was going to Jerusalem to do that, man. All right, so that's the congregation of the Most High, right? When you're dealing with that temple itself, right? And let's get some more on that, right? Let's get Lamentations. Let's get Lamentations chapter 1 and verse 10. We got to get the proper understanding on these verses, man. It says, the adversary have spread out his hands upon all her pleasant things. right? And again, this is a lamentation. It's a letter written by Jeremiah as he's seeing the destruction of Israel, the destruction of the temple. It says, "For she have seen that the heathen entered into her sanctuary, whom thou didst command that they should not enter into thy congregation," the Lord's congregation, the sanctuary, right? And the sanctuary is where all the holy things were. Let me see if I can find that real quick. I believe that's First Kings 6th chapter, right? 6th or the 7th chapter, right? That's Solomon's palace. All right, yeah. So it's in the 6th chapter. Let's deal with it, right? They actually called it the sanctuary, right? Might be in it might be in Chronicles then. Right. I want to pull this just to show something through the spirit. I'm about to look it up, right? Spill. All right, let's deal with the sanctuary. I mean, let me deal with this. I like this one. Yeah, I'm gonna get this. Going into the Day of Atonement, right? I'm gonna get this. Leviticus 16 and 32, right? Check this out, right? It says, "And the priest whom he shall anoint and whom he shall consecrate to minister in the priest's office in his father's stead shall make the atonement," right? Talking about the high priest, "and shall put on the linen clothes, even the holy garments, and he shall make an atonement for the holy sanctuary," because he actually went into the temple, right? And that's that holy sanctuary, man. The holiest of holies, right? The most holy, in the most holy place right there. It says, "And he shall make an atonement for the tabernacle or the sanctuary," right? It's tabernacle or the congregation, right? So you got the building of the congregation, right? Which is the tabernacle. So that's the congregation of the Lord. "And for the altar, and he shall make an atonement for the priest and for all the people of the congregation," right? That's why Hamashiach Yahushua, he was that, high priest that was anointed to atone for sins forever, man, for the Israelites, man. All right, but nonetheless, that's the congregation of the Most High, right? The tabernacle of the congregation is the tabernacle of the congregation, right? It's the temple within the congregation, but the congregation of the Lord is that whole premise there. And again, that's what I wanted. You had heathens, they had a spot they could deal with. I'm gonna deal with it, right? Revelation 11 and 1. It says, "And there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood, saying, Rise and measure the temple of God and the altar, and them that worship therein. But the court which is without the temple leave out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles." Right? So when you're dealing with the temple, I'm gonna pull it up already on Google. Let's see if I can get outer court. Let's see if I can pull this up. I want to get a right, an image of the temple, right, Lord willing. Right. See if we can kind of, all right, let's deal with it. So this Herod's temple. All right, but check it out. You got the court of the Gentiles, right, which is without the actual temple right here, right? So you actually got a court of the Gentiles. Now this is Herod's temple. I wanted to picture Solomon's, but that is still kind of do, because the heathens, they would have to make sacrifices too, even in the kingdom. Right? They go celebrate the feast days. All right. So you gotta understand that, right? That's Zechariah chapter 14. In Zechariah chapter 14, verse number 16. And it shall come to pass that every one that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Slack. That keep happening. Right. And during the Feast of Tabernacles, they would give different sacrifices in the altar. That's why I say they got to go up year to year and come to Jerusalem. That's what it says. And it says, and it shall be that whosoever will not come up of all the families upon the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. So they'll have to come to Jerusalem and do these different sacrifices. But certain nations, they could not enter into the congregation of the Most High. Right? And one of the people that couldn't do it is him that's wounded in the stones. Right? And you even see that among the priests in Leviticus 21 and 16 on down, right? Certain priests couldn't do the work of the Lord, man. All right, they couldn't do the work of the Lord. They was crooked back, flat nosed. There was a dwarf and things of that nature. They had extra limbs, right? It says, a bastard shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. Even to his 10th generation shall he not enter into the congregation of the Lord, meaning forever, right? Which is just a incest baby, man, for lack of better terms. And that's why you got this next verse where it says, an Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. And it's not talking about just entering into Israel. Because wasn't Ruth a Moabite? Didn't Solomon marry Moabites? Right? The men they dealt with Moabites, man. And Ammonites. You had in Judah, I'm gonna get that in Judith 11. You had Anchior, right? Let's get that in Judith 11. You got a man named Anchior, right, who kind of was kissing up to the Israelites. Still with it. All right. Where I want to start. All right, bear with me. Right, Ruth. Right, we're in Ruth, the 11th chapter, right? So this is Ruth. This is what I want. It's like you bear with me. Not Ruth. I meant to say Judith, right? Let's see what I want. Right. I thought it was 11. I'm guessing not. It might be chapter. Yeah, I think it's chapter 14, right? So let's get Judith chapter 14, right? Going into Anchior, right? Right, Anchior. And Anchior, I want to show that he's that's what I want. Verse verse 5. I'm gonna start at 5. It says, and before you do these things, call me Anchior the Ammonite, that he may see and know him that despised the house of Israel, and that he sent him to us as it were to his death. Right? Because Anchior in the 5th chapter, he kind of broke down and told them all the things about the Israelites and said if they not what they got, you can go against them. XYZ, he was giving them the blueprint. So he said they sent them. Then they called Anchior out of the house of Uzziah. And when he was come and saw the head of Holofernes in the man's hand in the assembly of the people, right? It says he fell down on his face and his spirit fell. Right? So I'm gonna jump down to verse 10. And when Anchior had seen all that the God of Israel had done, he believed in God greatly and circumcised his flesh of his foreskin and joined into the house of Israel to this day. So Anchior became a citizen of Israel, man. Circumcised himself and was cleaving, man. But nonetheless, he was amongst the Israelites, man. Right? But he couldn't deal with the congregation of the Lord. He couldn't deal with going and praying at the hour of incense and giving different sacrifices and things of that nature. And contrary to the heathen could do that, man. Right? It's not like they was on the equal plane. It's just like here in this society, you have certain rights that you can do certain things. You're just not on the level of the so-called white man or any of the nations. You can get a house and you can get and things of that nature, right? Remember, in the kingdom, the nations go be at rest, right? It's just when they defy, all hell go break loose, and Esau just go be exterminated, ultimately. But the other nations, they go, they go get the crumbs off the table, man, right? Just like we get the crumbs of this society. All right. So that's going into that. Now let me get Nehemiah 13, right? Nehemiah 13 and verse 1. Right, when you check this out, I'm gonna jump to verse 4. It says, because they actually read that law, right? Kind of, going into the foreigners getting excluded, right? It says, and before this, Elisha, the priest, having the oversight of the chamber of the house of our God, was allied unto Tobiah. Right, now, this is an Ammonite, right? I believe when you read Nehemiah, right, I believe that's 4 and 3, right? I believe it's the 4th chapter, right? Let me get it real quick. Right, Nehemiah, right? Bear with me. All right, let's get it, chapter 4. All right, this is the book of Nehemiah, chapter 4 and verse 3. Now Tobiah the Ammonite was by him, and he said, even that which they burnt, like which they built, if a fox go up, he shall even break down their stone wall. Right. So Tobiah was an Ammonite, right? And this priest was he was allied with him. And when he prepared for him a great chamber where aforetime they laid the meat offerings, the frankincense and the vessels, and the tithes of corn and the new wine and the oil, which was commanded to be given to the Levites, the singers, and the porters, and the offerings of the priests. Right, so this man was kind of laid back, kicking with his feet up, huh? In a great chamber, in a room. It's kind of chilling, man. Damn Ammonite, man. Right, an incest baby, sitting there looking crazy as hell, man, in the damn temple, right? But in all this, was I not at Jerusalem? Say, hey, so Nehemiah kind of clarify. I wasn't there when this went down, huh? This was before. I wasn't there. Right? It says, for in the 2 and 13th year, it's like the 30th year, it's like Artaxerxes, king of Babylon, came I unto the king, and after certain days obtained I leave of the king. And I came to Jerusalem and understood of the evil that Elisha did for Tobiah, and preparing him a chamber in the courts of the house of God. And it grieved me sore. Therefore, I cast forth all the household stuff of Tobiah out of the chamber. Right, so he kind of threw him out, man. Got him the hell out of there, man. Right, because he didn't belong in the congregation of the Lord. Right, the temple. He was in the temple, man. Kind of with his feet kicked up. Right, it says, then I commanded, and they cleansed the chambers, and thither brought I again the vessels of the house of God with the meat offering and the frankincense. They had to kind of kick them out, kind of wipe it and clean it off, man. Because you don't want a heathen kind of dwelling in the temple, man. You got to kind of scrub and clean that out, man. Because the nations, they don't believe in taking baths and all kind of madness, man. Right, so the Lord said he can't be in there, man. So he kind of flung them out of there, man. Right? Verse 4 in Deuteronomy 23, it says, because they met you not with bread and with water, but in the way, when they came forth out of Egypt, and because they hired against thee Balaam, the son of Peor, the Pethor of Mesopotamia, to curse thee. Nevertheless, the Lord thy God will not hearken unto Balaam, but the Lord thy God turned the curse into a blessing unto thee, because the Lord thy God loved thee. You see that, and you read these accounts in Numbers. Thou shalt not seek their peace nor their prosperity all thy days forever. Right, going into the Ammonites and Moabites, and ultimately all the nations, man. Right, but it says, thou shalt not abhor an Edomite. And again, right, you check out this word abhor, check it out, with the proper understanding that this is going into the tabernacle, things of that nature. Right, it says, to abhor, be abominable, do abominably. Right, to abhor, be detest, in a ritual sense, or it could be in an ethical sense. Right, so we couldn't detest them in a ritual sense, man. Right, because they would have to do different things pertaining to the temple, and we even had servants working in the temple. All right, let's get that in Ezra. Right, the 2nd chapter, I believe the 42nd verse. Right, around here somewhere. Right, Ezra Right, the mighty book of Ezra, chapter 2, right? I want to get this. Right, here it is. I want to just get straight to it. Here it is. Verse 58. It says, all the Nephilims and the children of Solomon's servants were 392. And these are the people that came out with Israel out of Babylon to the temple, to the Jerusalem. And guess what? The Nephilims and the children of Solomon's servants were heathen. So we had heathens dwelling with us in Babylon, getting free with us in Babylon, right? But they had a certain position, right? Let's check out these Nephilims, right? Let's check it out, right? Right, Nephilim, right? Check it out. It says temple slaves assigned to Slaki. I keep doing it. I don't even know what I'm pushing. Right? It says temple slaves assigned to the Levites and priests for service in the sanctuary. Right? So they're basically just temple servants, man. So the Levites, they actually had temple servants, man. Right? They had temple servants that helped them with certain things in the kingdom. I mean, in the right in the temple, right? Let's get 1 Kings 9, right? Going into Solomon's I believe that's what I want, right? 1 Kings chapter 9, right? In verse number 20. It says, and all the people that were left of the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, which were not of the children of Israel, their children that were left after them in the land, whom the children of Israel also were not able to utterly destroy, upon those did Solomon levy a tribute of bond service until this day. And that's in the law, right? It's in the law, right, that you can own their children. That's why it says he gave them as bond servants, and they were slaves all the way until that day, right? Because when you bought a heathen as a slave, they will remain your slave, man. Right? Check it out. But of the children of Israel did Solomon make no bondmen, but they were men of war, and his servants, and his princes, and his captains, and rulers of his chariots, and his horsemen. Right? So the children of Israel, they didn't get that same punishment. But these heathen, right, these other nations, which weren't Israelites, he actually made them bond servants, man. And that's why it says the Nephilims and the children of Solomon's servants. That's why it says their children were left. Right? Because you could buy servants and they'll remain your slaves forever. They're your possession, right? Other nations, right? So let's get this in Leviticus 25 and 44. It says, both thy bondmen and thy bondmaids, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathen that are round about you. Of them shall ye buy bondmen and bondmaids. Moreover, of the children of the strangers that do sojourn among you, of them shall ye buy, and of their families that are with you, which they begat in your land, and they shall be your possession. And ye shall take them as an inheritance for your children after you, to inherit them for a possession that shall, it's like they shall be your bondman forever. And but over your brother and the children of Israel, you shall not rule over one another with rigor. Right, so that's plain. So you could buy slaves and pass them down to your children of the other nations. And that's what Solomon did. Right? He gave them a tribute of bond service, and their children's children ended up going to slavery, man. And they still came back as the bondmen of the Israelites, man. Still was the Levites bondmen. All right, let's get another example of that. Let's get Joshua the 9th chapter. All right. So you can actually see the Israelites having the nations in servitude throughout the Bible, man. And this is gonna happen all over again. Right? Joshua chapter 9. Right, this is Joshua chapter 9. Right? Let me just get straight to the point. Now, this is going into the Gibeonites. Right, you got to read the chapter on your own, but this is going into the Gibeonites that kind of tricked the Israelites. They pulled some trickery. So instead of getting destroyed, they basically made them their servants. But check it out. Right? Joshua 9:27. And Joshua made them that day hewers of wood and drawers of water for the congregation and for the altar of the Lord, even unto this day, in the place which he shall choose. You see that? Notice it says in the place he shall choose, there was drawers of water for the congregation, right? Which is the temple. So they had Gibeonite slaves, man, in the temple, right? So you can read all throughout the scriptures, right, at these nations was the slaves to the Israelites, including the Levites. So the Levites had temple servants. It's actually another precept. I never can think about it. I believe it's in Chronicles, kind of going into this, right? But you get the point, right? So when it says thou shalt not abhor, it's talking about in that ritual sense, right? In that ritual sense, you can't do him abominably because he's your brother, right? But guess what? Esau ended up burning the temple down, man. So he kind of broke that covenant, man. Right? But nonetheless, that's the spirit of this law. It says, thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, for he is thy brother. Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian, because thou was a stranger in this land. The children that are begotten of them shall enter into the congregation of the Lord in their third generation. Right? So they'll be able to enter into the temple. Right? They could be temple servants. Right? Rather they somebody's concubine, and they following the feast day, and according to Gentiles, whatever the case may be, they just want to give tribute to the God of Israel, right? Because you see that in Ezra, the 4th chapter, right? The adversaries of Judah, they kind of was giving tribute to the Most High, man. All right, even in the third heaven, it's like not the third heaven, it's like even in the kingdom of heaven, right? You check it out, right? I'm gonna bring this out, right? It says, we just start at Isaiah 60:9. It says, surely the owls shall wait for thee, and the ships of Tarshish first, to bring thy sons from far, their silver and their gold with them, upon the name of the Lord thy God and the Holy One of Israel, because he hath glorified thee. And the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, and their king shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor but in my favor have I had mercy on thee. Therefore thy gates shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day nor night, that men may bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles, and that their kings might be brought. So they could bring the riches of the Gentiles into the temple of the Lord, man, to minister and serve the Israelites. All right. But certain nations wouldn't be able to pretty much get into this thing, man. They wouldn't be able to get into that thing. All right. So that's what it's going into. Now somebody asked what happened to the Cold Cuts channel, right? We have a new channel up, right? It's called Cold Cuts Resurrected, right? Cold Cuts Resurrected, Cold Cuts with a Z, Resurrected. So you can go and subscribe to that channel through the Spirit, right? You can go subscribe to that channel through the Spirit, right? Subscribing, all praise to the Most High. All right. So with that, I'm gonna give a Kwam Yasha Allah, right? Lord willing, I was edifying through the Spirit, right? Shalom, shalom.